Tonight, Ontario public elementary school teachers have taken another step towards a strike.
Unfortunately, the government and people on the other side of the table are not here for the same reasons.
They say they are tired of waiting for the government. Now, teachers could be in a legal strike position in a matter of weeks. Plus, a man is dead after a daylight shooting just north of Sherway Gardens. Just the latest victim in an escalation of gun violence in our city. And
people always say to me, why is the green movement so white? Well, guess what, folks? I look in the mirror and I don't see a white guy.
David Suzuki makes a stop in Brampton. The high-profile environmentalists aiming to broaden the range of people talking about climate change. Good evening, I'm Mike Wise. Ontario's public school elementary teachers could be in a legal strike position within a few weeks. This news comes just days after ETFO members voted 98% in support of the possible job action. Well, today the province and the union sat down for talks with a conciliator, but the union says those talks didn't go well.
After that strike vote being released, there was no progress at this table. And we're not going to wait another 2 weeks or another month. We need the government, as I've said, quite frankly, to be serious. If they're serious about the future of publicly funded education and students in the province, get serious at the table.
The union has filed a no board report. That's a labor negotiation formality. Once that's issued, which can take a few days, teachers would be in a legal strike position 17 days later. Now, Hammond says the main issues for teachers is a commitment to full-day kindergarten and funding for special needs students. The education minister, though, says wages are a major issue.
There is a issue or a concern in the context of compensation. I mean, that is the truth. And I think by their own admission, it'd be hard for them to disagree with that premise. They are requesting a significant increase with respect to what we're offering. And my position is, and I think one shared by at least a critical mass of parents, is if we're going to put more money in the system, I'd rather go into the front lines.
The government proposal would limit wage increases to 1% a year for 3 years, with the union pushing for a 2% increase. More talks are slated for next week. Well, meanwhile, the union representing education workers ratified a tentative agreement with the province that narrowly avoided a strike that could have shut down 24 school boards. Well, the deal did not pass unanimously, though.
Pushed back a great deal of concessions and also got the government to make a major investment. But I think we need to also appreciate the fact that we have the lowest paid people in the education system, and their wages are not keeping up with inflation.
About 79% of the 55,000 Canadian Union of Public Employees members voted in favor. Under the agreement, those workers will get a 1% wage increase each year over 3 years. A man is dead after a shooting at a strip mall just north of Sherway Gardens this afternoon. It happened right in front of witnesses.
I heard 3 or 4 shots, bam, bam, bam.
Broad daylight, lunchtime. Yeah, lots of people around. Yeah, frightening.
Now, Toronto police say it happened just before 1 o'clock at this commercial plaza near Queensway and Highway 427. Police say the suspect fired several times and left the vehicle, or rather left the plaza in a vehicle. The victim was taken to hospital on an emergency run, but he later died. Police are asking anyone with information to come forward. And police making an arrest in that shooting last week where 5 teenagers were shot in the lobby of an apartment building near Black Creek in Trethewey. A security camera caught footage of the incident last Wednesday. The victims, ranging in age from 16 to 18, were shot in the hallway of a low-rise building on Clearview Heights. They are all expected to survive. 20-year-old Andre Cunningham, who lives in Toronto, is now facing a number of charges, including 5 counts of attempted murder. Police say their investigation is still ongoing. David Suzuki making an appearance in Brampton tonight at an event trying to add a few more shades of color to the green movement. It was billed as a climate change panel trying to reach out to that city's diverse population. Many say they feel left out of the conversation in the past. Keldayun reports.
It is so great to be here and see the diversity of the people here.
Indeed, the faces inside Brampton City Hall were a diverse mix tonight, just like the city itself. The packed crowd all in attendance to hear David Suzuki and other experts discuss the urgency of the fight against climate change.
People always say to me, why is the green movement so white?
Suzuki says there is a reason why climate action may not be top of mind for newcomers.
Typically, immigrant families come in. Their priority is to get established here, get the kids a good education, get an income so they can buy a home. Those are the highest priorities.
The event, called 905 Talks Climate, hopes to add climate change to the mix with a panel made up of experts from the Muslim, Sikh, and Tamil communities.
Suzuki and the other experts here tonight say it's especially important to engage communities of color in this conversation because it's those communities that are affected by climate change the most.
People of color, who are often highly represented in poverty, have a much more difficult life responding to climate changes and climate catastrophes, and they're not being supported and they're not being engaged in solutions.
When we think about issues that are really challenging for people to access, such as good jobs, good pay, good public transit, something like climate change will actually accelerate that.
Suzuki says that's not just happening in third world countries, but right in our backyard.
People of color that live in the poorest sections of town, that's where we dump our toxic stuff. And you find that all throughout North America. It's a crisis for all of humanity.
The city hoping the discussion will inspire people to make changes to their lifestyle and to call their MPs to push for solutions. Kelda Yoon, CBC News, Brampton.
Colette Kennedy's here with her first look at the forecast. Didn't need the gloves today, but later this week, probably have to break them out again.
Yeah, you're going to need to break them out and add a few more layers, or it's time for the winter coats, I think, for some of you who haven't pulled those out yet, many of you. And it's because we've seen a few days where we have that real cool down, but then it pops back up. We're going to see some colder air come in and kind of settle in for a little bit. So we've got a few showers at risk, going on in the area now, isolated, not many of them, and towards tomorrow morning. It's then a transition on Tuesday, and I mean with the temperatures, it's kind of not too bad yet, just starting to cool down, and then much colder air moves in tomorrow night and settles in for a little while. So boy, oh boy, these kinds of daytime highs, double digits, we're not going to be seeing those for a while. It was a little breezy with those winds that were coming in from the south to southwest, pushing those numbers up like that. As we go towards tomorrow, that main batch of moisture off towards the east of us, you can see up into cottage country, we've got a few not only showers, but some flurries moving through there too. Late tomorrow for the GTA, we could see a few of those flurries moving through as that temperature is falling off. But in between, we should get some sunshine into the afternoon hours. Tonight, 6 degrees, not much of a change in the temperature tomorrow. And then late in the afternoon, it's going to start to fall. We'll take a look at all those cooler nights ahead coming up, Mike.
Okay, thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
It's the first official day of Ontario's cell phone ban in classrooms, but if you asked your kids about it today, they probably didn't notice many changes. Many GTA school boards have already had similar policies in place for years. Shannon Martin has more.
And how are we doing things here?
They are everywhere, cell phones inside and outside the classroom. Now, a province-wide crackdown. But judging from these kids, you'd never know it.
I didn't even know. I forgot that today was was it today that? Yeah.
So you haven't noticed a big dramatic change today?
I haven't noticed a change at all, really.
The Ontario government first announced the rules back in March, saying a survey of parents, teachers, and students found 97% in favor of restricting cell phones in some way. Under the new rules, mobile devices, including phones and tablets, are only allowed in the classroom for educational purposes as decided by a teacher, health and medical reasons, or to support special education needs.
For a number of years, what we have said is that we encourage the use of technology in the classroom, but the appropriate use of technology in the classroom.
The province's move, he says, only formalizes a policy TDSB has followed for the last 8 years. In statements to CBC Toronto, Peel, Durham, and Halton school boards say the same. Essentially, nothing's changed. Students there won't notice anything new.
It was a disjointed policy that existed under the former government.
Education Minister Stephen Lecce agrees many teachers have already been practicing the protocol. Today just ensures all schools are on the same page.
We want to make sure that irrespective if you're in a public or Catholic school, English and French, there's one standard to ensure that young people are focused on learning and not on their cell phones.
As for enforcing this all, that's up to the school boards. TDSB says it's not in the business of taking phones away. So, like they've been doing for years, if teachers catch kids distracted by their devices, they'll ask them to put them in their backpacks. Shannon Martin, CBC News, Toronto.
We could definitely see outbreaks of measles, and we've seen that in California, we've seen that in New York.
Health officials are warning of a dangerously high number of unvaccinated students in some Toronto schools. We'll tell you more about that coming up. York Regional Police releasing a video today showing a shootout happening in the middle of a residential neighborhood in Vaughan. Now this happened on Friday, just before 2 a.m. outside a home being used as a short-term rental. The video shows two men getting out of a four-door white sedan and firing more than 20 shots down the street. A third suspect gets out of a passenger side and into the driver's seat. The three then drive away. Now, in a statement, York Police Chief Eric Jolliffe said, "It's amazing that no one was injured or killed given the number of shots that were recklessly fired. We continue to see that there are people using short-term rental houses for parties, and their guests are bringing handguns and violence into York Region." They're asking anyone with information to come forward. CBC Toronto analysis has found that more than 10% of students are unvaccinated in a dozen publicly funded schools in the city. Now, what's important to note is that all 12 of these schools are alternative schools. The students received vaccination exemptions for religious or non-medical reasons. But as Farah Morali tells us, health officials in Toronto warn that percentage puts kids at risk for the spread of contagious diseases.
Good job!
At 11 months old, Scarlett Ronbeck is a healthy, happy, and playful baby.
Oh.
But it wasn't always that way.
Oh! We almost lost her a couple times, and yeah, it was pretty rocky for a while there.
At 7 weeks, Scarlett developed a bad cough, then started turning blue. She was rushed to hospital, where doctors diagnosed her with whooping cough, just 5 days before she was scheduled to be vaccinated.
It was kind of surreal because your mind doesn't go to a disease like that you had thought had been eradicated decades ago. Yay!
Because of what happened to her daughter, Rebecca Stonham has become an outspoken advocate for mandatory vaccines, especially school-aged kids. But CBC Toronto has found that more than 10% of kids at a dozen schools in Toronto have been exempt from vaccinations because of religious or non-medical reasons. All 12 are alternative schools. 7 of the 12 are in downtown Toronto. The school with the highest percentage of students that are unvaccinated because of those exemptions, Da Vinci School, at more than 36%. The second highest, Alpha Alternative Junior School on Brant Street, with more than 22%.
As a parent, does that concern you? I mean, not really. I understand why people choose not to vaccinate their children.
I don't know, I just think life is full of risks, and I don't think it's a big issue, personally.
Though the percentage might not concern those parents, public health officials say that's dangerously high.
If we had an exemption rate of, say, 10% across all schools in Toronto, we could definitely see outbreaks of measles. And we've seen that in California, we've seen that in New York.
Federal, provincial, and municipal health authorities all agree vaccines are critical in preventing the spread of infectious diseases like measles. But they say misinformation on the dangers of vaccines persist. This rally held at Queen's Park was in support of a Superior Court challenge against mandatory vaccines.
They do cause injury. Our government pretends that they don't.
A lot of it is false truths, and they've understood it and take it to heart, and they've chosen not to vaccinate their children. And so that's why what we're really trying to do is to get at the 20% of parents that are hesitant.
You want to play with your tractor?
Meanwhile, Stonham says she'll continue telling her story in hopes of changing a few hesitant minds.
It would definitely be to think about your actions, because there's more than just your children. I can guarantee you that if any parent was in the situation that I was in, they would probably have a little bit of a different outlook on vaccines.
Toronto's chief medical health officer wants the province to only allow exemptions for medical reasons. Ontario's Minister of Health says it has no plans to change the current approach to vaccines. Farah Morelli, CBC News, Toronto.
It is the video making waves across the city. These stunt drivers shut down Highway 409 to do donuts. Now, police are trying to track them down. Coming up.
The weather update is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Police are combing over some video shared on social media, trying to identify drivers and witnesses involved in a dangerous stunt carried out on Highway 409 near Pearson Airport. The crowd shut down the highway late at night so the drivers could do donuts. Greg Ross has more.
This cell phone video shows a white sports car doing donuts in the middle of Highway 409.
It's dangerous and reckless, and it's criminal.
Just steps away from the car, a number of people gathered to watch from the side of the highway, leaving their cars to block all lanes of traffic on the eastbound 409 just before the exit to Highway 27.
People are hijacking the highway for their own personal adventure, their own thrills.
Police are now telling us they believe this happened early Sunday morning. That's when calls came in that a part of Highway 409 was blocked by several cars. It happened on the part of the 409 where you see that curve in the highway here just behind me.
It's a controlled access highway. Traffic is going at full speed around a blind curve late at night. You're not expecting any slowdowns or any interruptions. No warnings at all.
It doesn't appear that anyone was hurt, but OPP Constable Kerry Schmidt says the outcome could have been far worse.
Had traffic been approaching that area and ran into the back of stopped traffic unexpectedly, and people are going to get hurt, people are going to die because of this.
The person behind the wheel of this car is facing the most severe charges, including stunt driving. But the people who got out of their cars to watch could be facing charges as well. Schmidt says they also put themselves in danger.
And one slip of the gas, one slip of the foot, and you can send that car flying, careening into a wall, into a parked car, or into pedestrians that are sitting there watching it.
This is not the first time something like this has happened. In 2017, a mob of motorcyclists blocked off a number of highways in the GTA while they performed stunts. That was also recorded by some of the participants, and dozens of them were charged. Police have already received a number of tips about this weekend's incident, including some from people who say they were there at the time. Police are hopeful they will lead to the identity of the driver and anyone else who helped organize this. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Colette Kennedy's back with her extended forecast. And Colette, you called tomorrow a transition day, and that's really code for find out where you put the gloves and hats and bring them out of storage.
Yeah, it is time. If you're forewarned and you've got that day to get things kind of organized before you really need them, and that will be overnight Tuesday, so Wednesday morning, a chilly start to things. Here's a look at what a typical November is in terms of some of the numbers. And you notice I've used an image here with some green grass and the leaves on the ground. Well, we know that it can change dramatically from that as we get a little later into November. So the average daytime high, so this is taking from what it is at the beginning of the month towards what it is at the end, it averages out to 7.6. So actually, for today's date, it's still 9.5, and then it will fall off. Your average daytime low just into the negatives. Rainfall almost 70 millimeters, and yes, we get into a measurable amount of snowfall in the month of November, typically between 7 and 8 centimeters. So seeing any of those little residual showers moving away from us through the overnight hours. We do have still some precipitation just to the northwest of the GTA. We'll get into some sunshine, especially into the afternoon hours, but then late in the afternoon, the temperature will start coming down. So maybe a few sprinkles in there, turning over to some wet flurries. We certainly have that risk. Then the temperature starts coming down further as we go Tuesday into Wednesday. We get a bit of a break in terms of any action, but that's not going to stay with us because late day Wednesday is when we'll see that next batch of moisture moving in, and with those cooler temperatures, we may well get into a mix or again seeing some wet flurries, maybe even a little bit of light accumulation. Winds have been gusty today, those kind of easing up, still a little breezy into the morning hours, and then they're easing up, although turning, of course, towards the west as the system makes its way through. For your overnight in southwestern Ontario, enjoy these. These are mild temperatures for your overnight readings, around 5 degrees, 8 degrees tomorrow, and then things changing as well for you overnight tonight. Also some nice mild readings for the GTA, and then a look at tomorrow afternoon. So just a little below seasonal, and then Here we go. The 5-day forecast. Tuesday night into Wednesday, -3, our overnight low. Wednesday, the high climbing only to 4 degrees. That's why this could turn into a little bit of a mix here. And then look at the daytime highs, or don't look. Maybe you don't want to. Mike, having a look at the rest of the week. Really chilly air moving in and settling in.
I'm watching the forecast with my eyes covered. Thanks, Colette.
Yeah, you're welcome.
This is my first experience seeing the tree being dropped into space. So it was super experience this morning. It's just absolutely lovely. Oh, the smell of this tree is unbelievable. Oh my God, it smells. This is Christmas. Today is actually Christmas. It's fabulous.
Just in time for that snow later this week. It's the triumphant return of the Distillery Market's Christmas tree. And what a tree it is. This green giant is a whopping 15 meters, or about 50 feet tall. Forests Ontario donated it. It took the group 3 months to find the perfect one. This balsam fir caught their eye in Bancroft. It was on private property, so in return, they gave the homeowner saplings to plant. I hope at least they got some VIP passes to the Christmas market as well. We'll be right back. And just in time for the snow later this week, the stars of Frozen 2 hit the red carpet in Toronto for the film's premiere.
I'm in awe of the whole process, the animators, what they do, the artistry in that, and so it's a real gift in my life, this entire Frozen phenomenon.
Having the ability to do a second one was really cool. Everyone else felt the pressure. Yeah. I did not, perhaps because one thing I share with Anna is eternal optimism. I'm a firm believer that if you make a cake and you use those same ingredients the next night, chances are it's also going to be a great cake.
In case you don't know, Frozen is a musical that had every child around the world singing the same song. Don't worry, I'm not going to do that. Now, the much-anticipated sequel to the Disney hit is set to hit theaters later this month, 6 years after the original. We'll have our favorite sisters, Elsa and Anna, on another adventure, joined, of course, by Olaf and the gang. And no surprise, it's expected to be a huge box office hit, making me wonder just how many movies grossing over $1 billion can Disney release in 1 year. There's still a Star Wars film to come as well. Well, tomorrow on Q, Karen Kane will stop by to talk about her 50th anniversary with the National Ballet of Canada. First, of course, as a dancer, later as artistic director. She'll talk about the company's future pending her upcoming retirement in 2021. You can listen to that at 10 a.m. on CBC Radio 1. I'll see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Good night.